saving, more doing. For license information, see homedepot.com/license numbers.
The Ride with JMV, FM 107.5 and 1070 The Fan.
Thank you, Bowen. Good conversation. 1070thefan.com podcast. Tony Pauline, Terry, Tony, whatever. He was really good. Tony, there's the biggest damn bird that just flew by this window. Did you see that?
No.
What the hell was that? Was that a condor?
I was at,
There's a pterodactyl just flew by the window here. Did you see that pterodactyl?
Went over and saw Indiana play Ball State yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
And a bird literally, pretty much grazed my hat. It was bad.
Have you ever been pooped on by a bird?
Yes. Have you?
Yeah, I think so. You ever been peed on at the zoo?
I've never been peed on by anything in my life.
Let me tell you this, and here's the reason why I'm telling everybody this right now, because it's a cautionary tale, but it's also, I got to go, I'm supposed to be a chaperone, I'm sorry, I got to do a background check. Like you guys at the school, you don't know who I am? I got to do a background check so I can go with Laney as a chaperone, right? To the zoo? A background check. I kind of don't want him to do it. Just don't.
They probably listen to your show and they want that background check for sure.
Anyway, when you go to the zoo and you go to the lion's den or cage or whatever, right? If you see, what's the juvenile song, Back That Ass Up? If you see it doing that to you, then get out of the way. Because the lion is ready to mark its territory. Meaning it is ready to super soak you with its urine.
That's my jam. Back that.
Have you ever seen that happen?
Yeah, I mean in videos, not like real life.
Oh, I saw that. We went to the zoo, and this has been years ago. And I'd seen that happen before. And we were standing over by the lion's cage or den or whatever, and I saw one of the lions, going a little juvenile right there, and it was backing that ass up. And I said, hey, we got to get out of the way. This is about to turn bad for people up in the front row.
Girl,
and man, it just cut loose a super soaking stream all over about 3 or 4 people up front. Cautionary tale. I'm telling you what, the king of the jungle and all that for a reason. Just take my advice when you're checking out the lions, because they'll pee on you. They will.
Damn lions.
Andrew, other side. Stephen Holder, The Athletic, is on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline right now. Did The Athletic make you do a mock draft of any kind?
Did I'm trying to remember. We did a couple of different ones. We did a beat writer mock draft, but we did it a while ago. So a lot's changed since then. Dane Brugler does a lot of stuff for us, and he's kind of been a good resource for me. We have. It's just not been recent. And in that one, I believe I took, it's been a little while, I think it was DeAndre Baker, the corner from Georgia, the Thorpe Award winner. I mean, look, would I do that today? Maybe not. I don't know. But who the hell knows?
Yeah, it's 26. Like last year, we were just sitting back and waiting for it to happen, right? Remember last year's argument was, are they doing the right thing, trading down to 6 and taking a guard? If it was top 3, no way you take a guard. But if it's 6, it's okay. Those are the arguments we were having a year ago.
Yeah, it's a much different landscape right now. Well, so much has changed. I was talking about this with someone earlier. So much has changed. Number one, they're picking 26, right? So obviously, they had some success because you don't end up at 26 if you had a bad season. So there's that. Then there's the fact that they're picking 26. Okay, so how in the hell do you even begin to handicap what's happening in front of you? You can't. And beyond that, you have a situation where their needs are not nearly as obvious as they were a year ago. We look at this roster 1 year ago, and we're like, all right, where's the offensive line? And we're looking at the defense like, okay, can any of these guys play? And I feel like the draft reflected that. Look at the first 2 rounds. Offensive line, defensive line, almost exclusively. Okay? This draft will not be that easy to project because their needs, they're not all met necessarily, but they've gone a long way to addressing their main needs. So, I mean, even the pass rusher to some extent. I mean, Justin Houston is no slouch, right? So it's not as if we can pencil that in as the number one pick. We don't know that. So it's a really interesting situation, and it makes it a lot more murky for Chris Ballard. But I think it's frankly, it takes the pressure off. He can do whatever he wants.
We and Stephen Holden joins us. I'm sure we have our need categories. What do you think their need category is going to be? If I throw 3 positions out at you, I'm going to have you rank it with description, top 3 wise. Defensive line, wide receiver, and safety.
Yeah, so I would say probably defensive line, only because, look, the pass rush last year, it was not good. And they got some sacks, but they got it through smoke and mirrors. And to play this defense the way they want to play it, you got to have some pass rushers that are humming. I don't care if they're an interior pass rusher. I don't care if they're an edge rusher, but you got to have some pass rush. And, you know, one of the things that I noticed in watching Justin Houston on film, which I did a lot of when they signed him, was I kept seeing number 50 make a bunch of plays, Justin Houston, but you know what I really saw was Chris Jones, the defensive tackle. That guy at the 3 technique, I mean, he makes every single play. He completely wrecks your game plan. So you can get that pass rush from anywhere. So I think the pass rush or the defensive line is number 1 for me. I'd say receiver 2, and it's close between 2 and 3 when you say safety, but I say secondary, not just safety. The reason I say that is because I think corner is important too. The reason I say that is, look, they are one injury away from being in a disastrous situation at corner. They don't have any depth at all, right? None. I like their corners, but I don't like the backup corners. So I think they got to create some depth there, and you got to be ready for anything. The injuries are going to come.
You know, it's funny when you were mentioning wide receiver, you kind of sound like, that's how I would think the Colts would every time I ask, because I'm Mr. Panic Button wide receiver guy here, right? I have been for the past couple of years, and they don't care. I would have to think deep down inside a little bit. I mean, they had to be crapping a little bit mid-season last year when they had a dropping epidemic and guys getting injured, and you're leaning on Dontrell Inman, and you got lucky enough where he helped save your season at that position. You have to recognize that a little bit, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's not where you want to be. I mean, come on, right? So, look, no one drew it up that way. Like, you know, I think if we have Chester Rogers and Zach Pascal out there, we'll be fine. Like, you know, like that wasn't really the plan, but it just kind of fell that way, and they didn't really see prime opportunities maybe to fill that need, or at least opportunities that they wanted to avail themselves of. You know, whether it be price or draft pick or whatever. So, you know, they ended up going into the fire with what they had. But listen, one thing I'd say is the one thing I think we forget, and you can decide for yourself as a listener whether this matters to you. But the one thing I think we forget sometimes is number 1, Deon Cain is sitting there, and I'm not counting on Deon Cain coming off an ACL being a stud. Not at all. Neither are the Colts. But I'm just saying, Deon Cain's sitting out there, and to a lesser extent, Reese Fountain is sitting out there, and we don't know anything about either one of those players. So, listen, they are guys who were picked in the latter parts of the draft last year for a reason, because they're not complete players. However, I still feel like they were able to certainly be in all the meetings and educate themselves last year, and now they'll have a chance to maybe get on the field and see what they can do, and they'll have an opportunity. So the Colts, if they have young players at a particular position who they think have upside, they're very hesitant about bringing someone in to maybe take those snaps if they haven't had a chance to really look at those guys. So that's why I think receiver for them may not be as high a priority for us. I just go by what we've seen the last couple of years. Chris Ballard hasn't invested really anything until this year. He hadn't invested a damn thing in wide receiver.
It's Stephen Holder, The Athletic. A final thing, I'm going to go ahead and put 2 listener questions together for you. Andrew and Matthew both are kind of asking, I guess, in general terms, if you expect them to make a pick, trade up, trade back, whatever. What do you expect them to do with 26? What's the most logical thing, make it or trade back in this case?
I think they're going to make the pick. I don't think that their trade options are going to be great. I don't see it shaping up that way. It has nothing to do with their desire to trade out or not. I'm not speaking to that at all. I'm just telling you that if there's here's how the draft is shaping up based on all the smart people who have talked about this, including Chris Ballard, who has said this to me privately, and then he said it again in his press conference. The top of the draft, the very, very top, you've got some elite players. And then there's sort of a cliff. It falls off, wherever that is, 10, 15, 18, I don't know where it is. It depends on your flavor. It falls off that cliff. Well, the Colts are picking after that cliff, right? But the good news is that depth at that point continues all the way through the second round. They feel like there's really comparable talent all the way into the third. He said, in Chris Ballard's words, all the way through number 70. So you're talking about into the third round. So here's my point. If you're sitting at 26, or you're a team, let's put it this way, if you're a team with an early second round pick, and you're looking at a player that's maybe falling, I mean, are you going to move up for him? Is he really going to be that difference maker that you feel like you can give up a couple picks for him to go get him, given the fact that there is that big gulf of talent level that we've just talked about? I just don't know that there's going to be a guy like that sitting there. Now, it can happen. All right, there could be a run on defensive linemen or receivers or something, and then it pushes other guys down. You got to have a premier guy that falls. And falling to 26 is a long way. That's the problem. So I just think their options aren't going to be great in terms of trading out. I think they're going to end up picking. But I do think there's certainly some incentive to look for those trade down opportunities. So they'll take the call. I know they will do that.
It is Stephen Holder of The Athletic. He's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group pile-on. He's always a really good follow on Twitter as well, and a friend of the show. Enjoy having you on, and I guess we'll do a little informational sharing after we find out what happens this weekend, at some point next week. Okay, buddy?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
Thanks, Stephen. All right, Stephen Holder of The Athletic on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Quick break. We'll come back. Final time. This date in history. A great song from a great album. And Tony, something that used to be wrapped in tinfoil that no longer is.
Some kind of treat?
Some kind of treat, he says. Yes. Jason Aldean tickets. Hey, sit tight. We're going to do that on the other side next, too.
Let's say you just bought a house. Bad news is, you're